Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. The Labour government are in a state of absolute blind panic. They're not quite sure what to do. I think it's pretty fair to say that Reform are leading now much of their agenda, certainly a lot of their narrative. There was no doubt that in the Runcorn by-election and in many of the English counties, one of the reasons that Labour did so badly was people felt aggrieved, especially those who'd worked through their lives and saved and had a small occupational pension. They were the people aggrieved that they were losing their winter fuel allowance. Many of them voted for us, quite a few of them too stayed at home. And it's an issue that I kept on pushing. I kept on saying, all but the very wealthiest pensioners should get the winter fuel allowance, particularly as we have the most expensive energy costs in the world, directly as a result, of course, of the fanatical embrace by both Conservative and Labour governments of net zero. Now, knowing that this press conference was due to take place at midday, at 10 o'clock this morning, the government said there'd be a statement from them at, well, you've guessed it, midday. Well done. You're keeping up in the front. And they have reversed their policy, and all but those that earn £35,000 a year or more will now get their winter fuel allowance. It means that 1.8 million won't. Quite how they administer that £35,000 figure, I'm not sure. I always thought it would be easier to say no winter fuel allowance if you pay, say, 40p tax or more. But it is a considerable step in the right direction. There'll be a lot of pensioners out there very, very pleased, including constituents of mine in Clacton who served this country in World War II and felt they were being very badly treated. So look, I think we can claim some credit for this Express headline from last week, and well done the Express for splashing it, and I think we have made the political weather on this one. There is no doubt in my mind that the government would not have U-turned on this had it not been for the pressure that Reform UK is putting on them. Now, Reform as a party is very much on track. Yes, we did hit a speed bump last week. It could be we were driving more than the recommended 20 miles an hour, which is what we're supposed to do here in Wales. But Zia Youssef and I have worked together almost inseparably over the course of the last 11 months, and we have both taken on our shoulders the most enormous burden. Zia, administratively, far more than me. And I was already beginning the process of trying to broaden the management team. Zia lost his rag. He put out an intemperate comment or two. I wonder who in this room hasn't at some point done that, whether it's on social media or with family or friends. But it was pretty clear by the next morning that he bitterly regretted what he'd done. And as part of broadening that management team, he is very much back and enthused, and he will take on the Doge job. And I can't even begin to tell you some of the things we've found in Kent County Council already in terms of the complacency of those that have been running these counties under the same political party and in terms of where money is spent. What I've seen already is astonishing. It'll be a massive job for Zia going forwards. He will also continue to help work on policy. I was in Las Vegas 2 weeks ago launching our crypto and digital assets bill, and in areas like this he has very, very unique experience. I will be announcing a new chairman of the party tomorrow. That'll happen at 11 o'clock in central London, and the new chairman will not be as bogged down with all the administration, with booking event halls and all the rest of it, as we broaden our team, and will be very much more of a front-facing person. We just had the English county elections. I don't think anybody would deny us the fact that it was an absolutely astounding success indeed. It went much further than I ever could have dreamt of. And I think what happened in Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse last week was remarkable. Reform came third. Well, yeah, we did come third, but we've gone from almost nothing to 26.6% and within touching distance of the other two parties. I think it's pretty fair to say that Reform blew up Scottish politics last week in a pretty dramatic way. And there are one or two early markers here in Wales that are very, very positive. I point to the by-election held a couple of months back in Torfaen, where Reform won that council by-election with an increase of 47% of the vote, with Labour falling, their share of the vote falling by 49% of the vote. Similarly, more recently in Carmarthenshire, Reform won that seat, going from nothing to 43%, with Labour down by 34%. Is it any wonder that Labour are in a state of blind panic? They are disconnected from ordinary, decent working folk at a national level, but I believe here too, in Wales, the way the Cardiff political class think and act is disconnected to the vast majority of Welsh people. So I'm here today to say that our campaign for the Senedd next May starts in earnest today. We've got a lot to do. We've got to raise money. We've got to find 96 calibre candidates to stand on those lists. And we've got to have a proper campaign plan. And of course, the elections will be fought using the D'Hondt system, something that's been very kind to me ever since 1999. And I want to make it absolutely clear. Our aim is very simple. Our aim is to win. Our aim is to win a majority. And our aim as a party is to govern in Wales. And I believe that it is achievable. Of course, we'll be taking on Labour, who've been in power here continuously for 26 years. And sure, Plaid will do well in some of their heartlands, but far less well in the others. As for the Conservatives, they are dying. I think what the results showed you in Scotland last week is that in many parts of the United Kingdom, they are pretty close to an extinction event. And we will certainly be saying to those Conservative voters that are left, you know, if you go and vote Conservative, you might finish up with Labour back in control. It's a risk that you are taking. But I believe we can win, and I believe, actually, if we get this right, we will win next May. And in some ways, we're lucky with our enemies, because Labour really are failing in Wales. 26 years of failure, and frankly, they've got nowhere to hide. Wales lags in everything: jobs, investment, growth, unemployment, the highest of any region of the United Kingdom. GDP per capita, £10,000 per head less than the rest of the country. It's a truly astonishing figure when you think about it. Wages, of course, correspondingly lower. And productivity, up to 17% lower than the rest of the country, which says to you that people don't have belief. People haven't got ambition. They're kind of, even those who are in work, many of them are going through the mill. On the National Health Service, there's really nothing Wales can say. A waiting list of over 800,000, huge closures of GP surgeries that have occurred over the last decade and a half, leaving GPs with more patients, again, than any other part of the United Kingdom. And perhaps the most damning indictment of Labour's control of health is the worst cancer care in the whole of the European time zone, which is a pretty sobering thought. On immigration, of course, they don't recognise the issue at all. Indeed, it's policy that Wales should be a nation of sanctuary. Yes, if you come in by small boat illegally, you are to be welcomed into Wales. Once again, one of those areas in which Cardiff speak and thinking within the Bay, within the institutions, is out of touch where the rest of Wales is. And I think the Stradley Park protests that we saw in Llanelli perhaps a more accurate reflection of how most people feel about this unfairness. I also find it hard to understand how, when it comes to social housing, and Wales does have a housing problem, as many other parts of the country does, that there is no prioritisation of Welsh people for social housing. Well, let me tell you, when we win next year, that will all change. The assault on farming in a predominantly rural place has been pretty astonishing at government level. Most of the farms in Wales are family farms. Most of them are handed down generation after generation. So what Labour have done, centrally, potentially very, very damaging indeed to farming, and indeed for many, many farmers, particularly in livestock, their incomes are extremely modest anyway. But Cardiff, of course, has done its best to make it even worse with their sustainable farming scheme, saying that we must cut livestock by 20%, that somehow cutting livestock by 20%, all the while China are building 80 new coal-fired power stations every year, is somehow going to save the planet. It's complete and utter madness. And whilst we might welcome a few more trees being planted to replace one with the other and to give farmers almost no chance of yield, certainly not in the short term, from forestry, I think is a pretty cruel thing to do. I believe that many, many people working in Welsh agriculture will see us as being the best people to fight their corner against this government, just as pensioners saw us as being the best people to fight their cause on winter fuel payments. And look, we've won a victory on their behalf by getting government to back down. We will try to do the same on other issues like this. Education, the lowest GCSEs in the UK. Lots of kids leaving school at 18 with very weak qualifications and with no thought or guidance into the fact that many could have gone into trades and skills, could have found something that they were really good at and could have given them some ambition for their working lives. And of course the insanity of 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, which saw some of the most remarkable petitions in size I've ever seen anywhere in the world. I mean, it's perfectly clear that about 3/4 of the Welsh population are against mandatory 24/7 20-mile-an-hour speed limits that have no flexibility at all. No, Welsh politics has been overtaken by the woke left, by those whose ideology is way to the left of centre and disconnected from real life, as they obsess about DEI and spend plenty of public money on it, as they obsess about climate change, trans issues and many other things. So let's make it clear, from today going onwards, a reform government based in Cardiff is going to be different. It's going to be very, very different indeed. What we are looking to bring about is a huge cultural change, not just in Welsh politics, but in Welsh life. And we'll certainly aim much of that at the younger population. Industry in Wales is being destroyed. My last visit to Port Talbot was, I did a live TV show here 3 years ago when I predicted, sadly but accurately, that the blast furnaces would go, and they've gone. But it's okay, you'll be told. It's not a problem, because the electric arc will be up and running sometime in 2028. Well, the electric arc is fine for recycling steel. It doesn't produce the kind of virgin steel needed, certainly for military hardware. But the problem with the electric arc is that it is, by its name, using vast amounts of electricity in what is the most expensive industrial electricity energy prices in the world. Tata can say what they like. Frankly, I very much doubt, given the status quo, that furnace will ever be switched on. Our ambition is to reindustrialise Wales. We are going to be using more steel over the next few years than we've probably ever used, as we increase military spending and as we attempt a house building programme in Wales, and even more so in England, of massive proportions just to catch up with the population explosion over the last 20 years. We are going to need a lot of steel. Our belief is we should be producing our own steel. Our belief is, for what uses coal still has, we should produce our own coal. Boris Johnson pronounced boldly, it's the end of coal. Well done, Boris. This year, on Earth, mankind is going to burn 8 billion tonnes of coal. It's almost hard to get yourself around that figure, isn't it? 8 billion tonnes of coal. As Indonesia, with its 250 fired coal stations, China, India, etc. So I'm not standing here, and no doubt some will lampoon this, I'm not saying let's open up all the pits. What I am saying is there's coal, specific types of coal for certain uses that we still need in this country, and we certainly will need for the blast furnaces here, that we should produce ourselves rather than importing. And just before Port Talbot closed, they were importing the coal there from Australia. You tell me, in terms of carbon dioxide emissions, how that makes any sense at all. But of course we have to go much, much further than this. Now, I talked earlier about education. Yes, the results are terrible, but there's an awful lot of young people in Wales leaving school with no real qualifications, no real thought for where they're going to go. And what we would want to do is to launch as many trades and skills colleges as we could. What we would seek to do is to make sure that these opportunities for learning engineering, and frankly I'm talking about old and new industries, everything from engineering to AI, people should be able to begin studying and learning from the age of 15 or 16 years old. To give those teenagers at school who have little or no interest in academic education, and there are many like that, they're just not interested, and they're bombing out of school with nothing. We want to try and bring some of that vocational training in via colleges from the age of 15 or 16. We want, of course, if we can train a lot of people in skills, that then actually prompts more investment to come into an area. You know, one of the reasons that Ireland did so well in the 90s wasn't just that their tax rate was more competitive for companies, it's that they had a lot of people with the right skill sets in technology, good use of maths, English. That was more academic, but the fact that potential workforce was there led many to go to Ireland, and we need to do the same in Wales with skills. And we want to push an idea of buy Welsh, build Welsh. Let's make sure that procurement contracts go as much as is reasonably possible to good value Welsh providers. You see, you might get some building business, you never know in the end of all this. And to try and stop the globalist thinking in terms of where contracts are sent. We will absolutely put Welsh people to the top of the social housing list, and not those that have come into this country, in many cases, illegally to begin with. We have to think about planning rules, particularly on brownfield sites for new investors, so things can move quickly in terms of new factories being built, new business opportunities. We, of course, have to scrap the ridiculous 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. That has to go, whilst we understand, of course, that outside schools between 8 and 10 in the morning, etc., there are grounds for being grown up and being sensible. And I would say this to you, that I'm standing in front of you today with a very ambitious plan for what we can do, a bullish prognosis for what we can do in these elections, but I believe that we can make Wales better. I believe we can make Wales much, much better than it's been after 26 years of continuous and failing Labour rule. Thank you very much.